Every e-learning project has a phase where you get content approval. What if that process could be 10 times faster and actually get stakeholders excited about what you're building? In this video, I'm going to show you the two-part system I use instead of storyboards to get approvals almost instantly and get my clients incredibly bought in. And if you're as allergic to meetings as I am, you're going to love this because this system has cut my meeting time down to almost zero. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Mary Jo. I'm a former video game producer, and now I help e-learning designers use game mechanics in their courses to maximize impact. If you're struggling with getting stakeholder buy-in or having ideas or making measurable behavior change, book a free call at the link below. I want to hear about your specific challenges and we'll make you a game plan. Now let's look at the two-step system I use instead of storyboards. And before we dive in, let's be clear about the role of storyboards. First, we want to give the SME a quick way to review all the content to make sure it's accurate. And second, we need to get everyone on the same page about the journey learners are going to go through and how that's going to achieve their goals. That's the role of a storyboard, but in practice, I've found that they cause 4 massive problems that hamper the project before you even start. Number 1, if you include mock-ups or placeholder images in your storyboard, stakeholders will pretty much always get distracted by those instead of focusing on the learning design and the content. There's no getting around it. Pictures attract attention. I don't care how basic you make it. You might think it's obvious that this is not final art. Someone somewhere will waste his time and yours telling you that the colors are off brand or the font is wrong, and then you're gonna have to say, no, this is placeholder. But if you don't include graphics in your storyboard and you stick to written descriptions of what's gonna be on screen, then it gets really hard to convey what you have in mind. They're trying to understand something audio-visual from a text description, which is a lot of cognitive load, and there's 100% chance that everyone's going to see it slightly differently or a lot differently in their head. Third, no matter what kind of e-learning you're building, there are going to be elements that repeat from one slide to the next. So if you have one page per slide, for example, you'll have a lot of repetition in the storyboard, which leads stakeholders to skim the document because they're not going to read every single mention of the home button. You can't blame them for doing that, but because they skim, they will miss things. And 4, storyboards come from movies and they work great in that context, but that format is totally different from e-learning. For one thing, you consume movies passively. You don't take part in them, you just receive them. But e-learning is interactive. If you're doing this right, the learner's making decisions and ideally things change based on how well they're doing. So even if it's not a branching scenario, it's going to play out differently for each learner. You can't storyboard that. Yes, I have seen people turn their storyboard into a choose your own adventure book. If the learner chooses this, then go here in the storyboard, otherwise go there. But then it's really hard for the SME to understand that in a linear fashion and to be sure that they've seen every single possibility. Now, more often than not, a linear storyboard format makes you design linearly, which drives courses themselves to be linear and one size fits all. So to avoid all that, I use a two-part system, a playable prototype along with a content blueprint. The prototype gets everyone on the same page instantly. Instead of describing how the e-learning will work, I put it in their hands. They can immediately see how the experience will teach and assess learners and how that connects to their real-world goals. No imagination required. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a reluctant client just perk up and get it when they see a playable prototype in action. But prototypes are not great for content review. Your SME needs to check that all the facts are accurate without having to play through the entire program and every single possible option. That's where the content blueprint comes in. But before I get into that, again, if you want my complete system for creating engaging courses that learners love and that drive results, check out my program. Okay, a content blueprint is a structured template that's based on your specific content structure. I know that doesn't mean anything, so let me show you exactly what I mean with 2 real gamified programs and 1 non-gamified one. Example 1. You may recall a grammar exercise I built last year for people learning English. This mini-game is specifically designed to help learners build a grammatically correct question in English by selecting the words in the right order. On that project, instead of storyboarding, I shared a playable prototype of this with my client. That way, everybody immediately gets how it works, how you pick the words, what feedback you get, and what the reset button does. They play through it and they get it with 0 cognitive load instead of having to read text to imagine it. But my prototype only has 5 questions in it, and the final game is going to have 40 so that whenever the learner plays it, the game would pick from those 40 at random. And if a learner is struggling, then they have this big pool of questions to help them practice a lot of times without seeing the exact same content. Obviously, I'm not going to ask my SME to play a ton of times to see every single possible combination and check that the content is accurate. She gets a taste with my prototype, but for content accuracy, she gets my blueprint, which in this case is a simple list of the sentences I'm planning on using, split up by the different parts of the sentence: subject, object, verb, wrong choices, etc. And this cell here displays the correct sentence. If my SME changes something, this sentence updates because it's a concatenation of all these other cells. And once that's approved, I just grab that and paste it into the game. I know this is very simple, so let me show you a more complex one. Years ago, I created this game for healthcare providers to teach them about a specific disease. The goal of the game was to build an article about that disease. The article had 10 subsections: diagnosis, treatment, risk factors, symptoms, tests, etc. Learners would search through this virtual office to find facts hidden around the room. For each section of the article, there were 4 hidden facts in the office. When they found all the facts for one section, say diagnosis, they could answer quiz questions about that, and then that section of the article would become complete with a little summary. They would repeat this 10 times, once for each part of the article, and by the end, they had a printable job aid which they could share or actually use back on the job. Now this is interactive, so it's not going to play out the same way for you or for me. Maybe I'll find all the information about risk factors first, and you're going to focus on symptoms. It's not my SME's job to figure out where each piece of information is hidden just so that they can verify that the content is accurate. Instead, my prototype showed how to find only 4 notes and complete 1 quiz to see that one section of the article get completed. Just 1, period. In the real game, you would go on to do that 9 more times to complete the other sections, but I'm not putting the SME through that. Instead, I'm giving him a content blueprint which lists each category with the 4 knowledge bites, plus all the quiz questions for that section, and finally the summary blurb that would appear in the article once the section is completed. So the SME can review everything systematically without having to play detective in the virtual office. Now both of these are gamified programs, but that's actually irrelevant. The key here is that we have a repeating structure: build a sentence or complete one section. The prototype only shows one example of those repeating loops. The blueprint has the content for that loop and all the other loops. So if I ever did a traditional e-learning where I teach and I test, I would make a very short playable prototype where I have 1 teach section and then 1 quiz, and then I deliver a content blueprint that has each content dump and its questions. So if you're trying to convey what the program will play or feel like, don't use a storyboard. It's just not made for that. Conveying the experience is the job of the prototype. As for content approval, the blueprint is better because unlike a storyboard, it's not trying to mimic the e-learning experience. Its only job is to present the full scope as clearly as possible. And together they're unstoppable. The prototype gets them excited about the experience, and the blueprint makes them confident that nothing's been forgotten, and it helps SMEs review content without getting distracted by graphics or useless repetition. So here's exactly how to start if you want to try this approach and cut your review time in at least half. Number 1, start small. Don't try to prototype everything, just focus on one core loop. Show how the task gets presented, how learners interact with it, how they get feedback. That's one loop. And don't make it pretty, just make it work. Number 2, build your content blueprint. This needs to match the structure of your loop. For example, the 4 bits of information, the questions, and then the blurb that appears in the article. Organize all your content using the same structure. And finally, test with real people. The prototype not only makes things clearer for the client, but you're also no longer guessing about whether or not they really understood your descriptions. You can see that they get it, and you're getting reactions on the actual experience. In the end, storyboards don't really serve our goals because they're just not made for that. And if you want to try something different, this 2-step system can transform your workflow and get your approvals a lot faster. And if you want the complete framework for creating this kind of engaging e-learning that drives cognitive engagement and gets real-world results, check out the link below to learn more about my framework. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.